What's up, YouTube? I'm Valentin the Mad, and this is a Gore review of Verdun. When Verdun hit official release in May 2015, there was nothing remotely close to Gore. You would see a small blood puff, characters would drop ragdoll on death, and you would only have animations for characters dying from a gas attack. But recently, the game received a major free expansion called Horrors of War, which includes, among other things, an actual Gore system. A post-launch Gore overhaul is not something we see often at all, especially not a free one, so it's an awesome move on the developer side. One more thing that got me excited is that the developers watched the Gore reviews. Reaching game developers was one of the reasons I started this series to begin with, and this definitely marks a success. So the question is, did they do a good job? Let's find out. I'll be reviewing every aspect of the game's Gore effects, and the score will be set based on 4 categories: body damage, environment, animations and sounds, the feel. Each limb has 2 points of amputation, the head can be damaged or destroyed, and the body has this completely annihilated variation. The dismemberment looks good. There's some blood splattered around the point of amputation, and there's generic splatter further on the body. The biggest issue is the limb itself that disappears moments after being torn off. I couldn't even take a look at those for the purpose of the review. Seeing a dismembered limb lying a few meters away from the body, with a small blood puddle below it, would definitely add to that Horrors of War feel. As for the head damage, it's beautiful. The variations are gory as hell, and they're quite creative. I definitely can't recall seeing something like this in a game before. However, there is one major flaw with the head damage. All the variations have the same face. Characters literally get a facial transformation when you shoot them in the head. It's not just a badass way to describe this variation. There are 2 possible ways to get the variations approach for head damage right. One would be to actually make several variations for every single face. The other one is to have variations where the face is literally unrecognizable. That way, the only customization per character would have to be hair color and facial hair. As for non-dismembering body damage, you have blood at the point of impact and generic splatter as well. The impact blood looks good. It's a large stain, it appears where you shot the character, and perhaps most importantly, it stays for as long as the body stays, which can't be taken for granted nowadays. As for the generic splatter, it's mild and it will appear around the area of the wound, not all over the body. While I dislike the idea of generic splatter and prefer all the blood to be directly related to the wounds, this is a great way to get such a feature done. A few other points I wanna mention. First, as described, it's only blood splatter, not a wound. You won't see any holes anywhere, so you can't really tell whether the character was killed by a bullet, a stab, or shrapnel. The blood splatter for the face looks really odd, and the response for blunt damage is the same splatter as for everything else. Somewhat milder splatter on the face would actually be great feedback, but by no means should we be seeing this. As for the burn damage, it's awesome. It's location specific, meaning you will see burns only where you actually burn the character, instead of the usual all-over texture. I don't recall seeing something like this in a game before, and I'm genuinely impressed. There is some room for improvement when it comes to the looks of the face and the transition to unharmed areas, but all in all, it's nice and brutal. The burn animations are short and should definitely be longer, but we have somewhat of a redeemer here. Some burned characters will be subtly moving and gargling after that animation, which I must say is brutal as hell. I think we should have both. Long wiggling and rolling animations with gut-wrenching screams that will have a chance of being followed by subtle movements and gargling for another 20 seconds or so. Should also be noted that burning activates the impact sound of guns and blood spilling, which obviously should not be happening. You have blood splatter on impacts, blood trails, and blood pools for dead characters. The splatter is really cool. You'll actually see stains on every hit, and the stain is proportional with the blood puff effect, though not directly related. The blood trails are an absolutely awesome feature. You'll see a blood trail from the point of impact to the location of the body. While it's not a huge feature, I absolutely love it. It's the attention to small details that gets me really excited. A blood trail will appear for wounded characters as well, however, it will stop by itself after a few seconds. That's right, there are no bleeding mechanics in Verdun, and actually we have the opposite. Health fucking regenerates. I wouldn't be citing it as an issue if I was doing a video on something arcadey, but we are talking about a hardcore military shooter where most rifles can take you down with one hit. Health regeneration makes zero sense in this game. Seriously, reverse it. Health regeneration needs to go out, bleeding mechanics need to come in. A few more points about the spilling. The decals used for blood pools seem to be the same decals used for the impact splatter. So while this looks great, this really doesn't. The blood pools appear in about a second or two instead of slowly expanding, and some surfaces can't be stained in blood. This includes wood, which covers almost every single trench, so it's a major issue. I would also like to make a suggestion. Make the spilling directly related to the wounding. If a character was killed by a headshot, the pool would form below the head. If the character lost several limbs, we would see smaller blood pools below each stump. Now how's the mess in the long term? It stays for a while, but it's not permanent. You have some control over it. One of the differences between High Notre and the Gore setting would be mess staying longer. While the aftermath is by no means lacking in Verdun, I still think there should be more control given to the player. Instead of having only one general setting for Gore, you would have one for the level of violence, and a few others to control Gore-related stuff that affect performance. Those would be the blood and body sliders I'm always talking about, and an option to have limbs stay for as long as the body stays. You have no response animations on impact, but the death animations are awesome. The deaths can be divided into two parts. An "oh shit I got hit" animation, which has a chance of being followed by a dying animation. Those dying animations are really cool. You have jerking, choking, and a few that resemble a disabled state. And speaking of it, the animations are exceptionally long, so they do function as a disabled state. You can respawn, but your character will still be lying in pain suffering. You see a guy defending the trench, and next time you encounter him, he's struggling to breathe. I'm a huge fan of this feature. It takes the brutality to a whole new level. Should also be noted that those animations are affected by physics, which is very important with the terrains in the game. However, there are issues. The long animations are not interruptible. You can't put characters out of their misery. I haven't seen long animations happen with characters who died from explosives. A dev blog called Semper Fi showed footage of a character who lost several limbs still moving, but has spent many hours in the game and haven't seen it once. You do have animations for dismemberment caused by rifles, but those animations are usually generic failing. While it's better than nothing at all, it would be much more brutal seeing characters react specifically to the limb they lost. A good example of that can be seen for leg dismemberment in The Darkness 2. The biggest issue in the animations department is that there are no changes of behavior for wounded characters. They'll keep running like nothing happened, despite taking damage. This issue is directly related to the regenerating health. Why should they have trouble running when the health goes back to normal after a very short while? The visual feedback is very solid in this expansion, but the game needs major changes to the damage model and animations when it comes to wounding without killing. You have response sounds on impact, characters will scream when hit, and scream even more when they die. You actually have a response sound for a bullet hitting the body, so if you get shot or someone nearby takes a bullet, you will very much hear it. I think it could be somewhat more quiet, but all in all, I really dig it. I'm not a fan of the sounds for stabbing and bashing though. I think those could be much more brutal. The character response sounds are very short, but the screams of dying characters are absolutely awesome. They are activated on the longer animations, so they'll last for a while, and you often hear several characters screaming in the background. What could be expanded though is character comments. You will hear some automated comments occasionally, but I think there could be a much larger variety of those. Comments if someone got killed nearby. A "cut that bastard" remark when you score a hit. A scream of panic if artillery explodes in your area. The main question is, does Verdun deliver that PTSD simulator feel? I think so. The body damage and the blood spilling deliver. The aftermath feels good, but most importantly, you have mortally wounded characters wiggling on the ground for long periods of time. I really can't emphasize enough how important that is, especially for a war game, and what a huge difference it makes. So the score for body damage is 21 out of 30. The score for environment is 19 out of 30. The score for animations and sounds is 19 out of 30. I give the feel a score of 8 out of 10. So this gives the Gore system of Verdun a total score of 67 out of 100. There are a few major issues to address, some smaller stuff to fix, and there's plenty of room to expand the existing mechanics, but looking at the big picture, I think the experience is exceptional. And here's the best part: the Gore as it is not final. As I was working on the review, a few patches came out that fixed Gore-related issues, and will have even more improvements in Gore 2.0, which is also planned. I'll make an update video discussing it whenever that will come out, but in the meanwhile, here is a review full of feedback for Gore 2.0. Gore aside, would I recommend it? I absolutely would. This game is right up my alley. It's a hardcore historic military shooter in a very uncommon setting. One of my concerns was whether they can make trench warfare actually fun, and the answer is yes. You have a PvP and the co-op game modes that do exactly that, along with several deathmatch modes that are also very enjoyable. To sum up this video, I'll just say, take me down to the Paradise City, where the gas is green and the gore is pretty. Hope you enjoyed watching the review. Let me know how you feel in the comment section, and if you liked the video, subscribe and share it with your friends. You can find the link to all of my Gore reviews in the video description. Until next time.